petition number 3, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So that is the ego is saying, I am going to live my life out of the same rule that you bring to your kingdom. Okay, so it's saying, whatever God is doing, I'm going to try to do. Okay. Now the problem that we get to at the end of this evening, which is paragraph 661, is, oh, by the way, you have to accept that God is dualistic. Okay. He's a good God, but he's also a son of a bitch. Right.
Read that line over again.
Okay. I'm going. Oh, the petition is, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Okay. And I think what he's saying is that metaphorically, heaven represents what we have around us. It's in terms of psychologically, leaving aside whether there's a metaphysical place where you can go, right? He's saying from a psychological point of view, heaven is a place where you can basically live in peace, go to the grocery store, most of us get paid, or we get welfare, whatever it is, but something supplies food for us.
It made me think of the as above, so below.
Yeah.
That thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is sort of like also, self.
Right. That's a famous Jung quote, which says, "As above, so below."
That comes from astrology.
Oh, it comes from astrology, you're right. But it says that you have to have really deep roots in order to have a big tree, right? The classical astrological image of that is a tree with roots, right? And so you got whatever you've got above the ground, but you got to have a solid basis in the ground too.
Yeah, okay. In any case, it's like there's a resonance and a correspondence between the two. Okay.
The idea is of this petition number 3 is that we're going to live our lives based on certain rules that are transpersonally accepted in our environment. Okay? I mean, when you drive, when we met one another at Trader Joe's yesterday, you had driven to Trader Joe's and you had done so on the right side of the road, correct?
Every time I remembered, I was on the right side.
Okay, well that's the transpersonal self. Okay, you've accepted that rule that you've accepted the rule that you're going to drive on the right side of the road, right?
Right, but if there'd been a tornado coming down the middle of the street, I might have moved to the left side.
Well, that's the exception, right? Yeah, sure. Okay, so basically we're gonna honor the traffic laws except when we're not, right?
Right.
Okay, petition number 4. This is a good one. It's give us our daily bread. Okay, and the Vulgate Bible says, give us our supersubstantial bread. Okay, this is a request for the inflow of nourishing images and meaning, which is the psychological breath. So it's bread. It's the psychological bread. So it's the inflow of psychological bread, of nourishing images. It doesn't mean bread, actually. And there's this wonderful story of Dr. Jung where, most of his work is pretty arcane, but one time there was a knock on his door at home, and there was this old peasant woman and who'd come to the door, and she just wanted to meet him for 5 minutes. And so he grokked pretty quickly that she was, a peasant and not very educated. And so he says, how is it that, you're interested in my writing? And she says, well, your writing is like bread to me. Okay. And that's the same idea. It's like bread. I need it for my psychological well-being. And I know in my last 30 years, every time that I've gone through a struggling time, if I go and pick up any Jung book and start reading on any page, it just calms me down. It's an amazing thing. So, all right, so petition number 5, forgive us our trespasses or our debts. So the nature of the ego's sin is against the self. Its characteristic sin is the inflation of identifying with the self, trespassing on the self's territory. So,
what was the Lord's Prayer? What was the petition again?
The petition is forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us.
How does he get that out of that?
Well, he's saying that the ego's sin is the sin against the self. That's the actual
That's the
sin.
trespass.
That's the trespass. The trespass is that the ego is trespassing on this transpersonal element. Okay, we have one tremendous example of that in this country right now, where ego is trespassing. Okay, we're not going to discuss it, but I mean, anyway, that's an example.
I have no idea what you meant. What was the bread thing?
Oh God, help me. So anyway, it's the characteristic sin is the inflation of identifying with the self, which is the transpersonal, the environment of the transpersonal, to say, only I have the answer to this.
But it also has the forgiveness part of the petition, right? So how does he deal with that?
Well, this is a petition asking for forgiveness. Okay, the example we're talking about isn't asking for that yet. Okay.
Say, as I forgive those who trespass against me.
Yeah. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive our trespassers. Okay. Right. So
He's looking at the first part of it, pretty much.
well, I mean, it's admitting that you do trespass. Okay, that we do trespass. Okay, against the self. Okay, when I was driving through the intersections at 70, 80 miles an hour, I was certainly trespassing and putting other people's lives at risk, right? As you would be if you drove down the road on the wrong side of the road. Okay.
Maybe he's just saying because none of us are perfect.
None of us are perfect. So that's a trespass. That's a trespassing against the transpersonal self, because we all rely on everybody driving on the road a certain way, right? And if they don't, then okay.
I'll rock that a lot.
Right. Okay. But then the worst thing, the inflation, the inflation would be, well, because I'm me, I'm going to drive on the left side of the road all the time, and the heck with the rest of you. You just drive on the other side, right?
People that go down the shoulders and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Works
yeah.
in England.
Right. Well, that's right.
I drove on the left side of the road and it was perfectly legal.
You know, or sometimes motorcyclists who dart in, right? You know, because I'm all for dealing with motorcyclists as an automobile, giving them the same space I give an automobile, and so on. But when they come up behind me at 80 miles an hour and then they go zoom right in front of me, between a car and me that's 2 car lengths ahead of me, I go, oh my God. Well, let's put it this way: we used to kill 50,000 people on the road every year. Now it's down to about 13,000. But every time I see that, I say, you're one of the 13,000 this year, buddy. Right. Right. Yeah.